number one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 385 of Sports Card Nation. As always, glad to be back. Happy Friday. Happy whatever day you happen to be listening to this episode. And with that being said, I want to thank you guys out there for, as we wrap up or coming down the home stretch here of our 7th year, and that's crazy to say, but 7 years on the podcast airwaves, and without you, we don't exist. And so a heartfelt thanks there to everybody out there who make time, wherever that might be, doesn't matter. We appreciate you. Appreciate our sponsors, Iron Sports Cards, Sports Collectors Digest, Hobby Hotline, and Upper Deck. And so while we're mentioning all these great people and great things, let's talk about this week's and next week's great guest. And it's been a little bit since he's been on, but he's an alumnus of the show and a great hobby ambassador and advocate. And I'm talking about Chris McGill, Card Ladder, House of Jordans fame, crossover, and collector, and I'm sure I left off a hat he wears, but great guys and other hat he wears, and it's been a little bit, so I thought it's time we have him back on. And the one thing one of the things I love about Chris is, you can when I chop it up with him, right, there's nothing off limits, and he doesn't mince words, right? Which is how I try to be, and I always find that refreshing. And it's, he's not trying to sell anything. We can talk about anything, and it's always a fun. One of my favorite conversations is when he's on, and because I know even if he doesn't agree with me, he's going to tell me, or if he does, he's going to tell me, and that's, there's no gray area, and I appreciate that. So after that intro, and with that being said, let's get this show started. Always happy to have the next gentleman on the Sports Card Nation guest line. He is a multi-time alumnus of that, and it's been a little bit since the last time, so I figured I would. It's about time we have him back on. It's a guy that has his finger firmly on the pulse of the hobby. Very insightful, very intelligent, and always glad to have him part of this show. Chris McGill, Card Ladder, crossover. House of Jordans. I probably forgot a title there, but as always, welcome.
Thank you for the very kind introduction, John. It's always an honor to get the chance to come on this show, man. Big fan of the show. I've been listening to this show. Might even be close to a decade by now.
This will be our 8th year. That's crazy. Think about.
I remember when the show you didn't have a microphone. I remember in the show, like I had to hurt my ear to listen to it, and I still listen to it.
I was in the basement with a candle and the phone.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, a little different now. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and coming from you, like you're an OG as well. Like I've been called that, but you're an OG as well. We've done this time. Always glad to have you. Look, we don't need to do. We've been on enough. We don't have like where it all. We've covered that, but I said. You have your finger on the pulse. You're very active in the hobby. Again, let's say I'll make you hobby president. I know that's supposed to be Mangini. He's been impeached. You're the guy now. State of the union, right? Good and bad. Like, where do you see the hobby right now? It's like every year it's in a way different spot than the previous year, between mergers and acquisitions, companies by the wayside. New companies. How would you describe the landscape?
Great question. Let me say this, John. John Mangini is unimpeachable. President Mangini is unimpeachable. All right. I feel like I have to give him that respect. Okay,
just for the question's sake, hypothetically.
I'm gonna go with a hypothetical. And I'm going to say that, so if I'm going to take a little creative license here, sort of if I'm giving the state of the hobby, the theme of my speech would be caution and stop and smell the roses. Okay. And I'm just coming up with this off the cuff. I mean, you gave me a little warning that this question was coming. I've been thinking about it a little bit, and this is where I would go with it. I think I would say caution and stop and smell the roses, because the hobby has a lot of flaws, has a lot of pain points, has a lot of things that could be improved. But nonetheless, it's a pretty okay hobby. It's a pretty good hobby, if I may say so. And things are going pretty well, and plenty of people are doing well, and plenty of businesses are doing well. Plenty of card shows are well attended. Marketplaces are setting record high volumes. People are having fun building their collections. People are having fun buying, selling, trading, dealing. And it's not guaranteed that it's always going to be like that. For as many flaws as exist today, and there are plenty of legitimate flaws that exist, and for as much room for improvement as there is, John, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. And you know what? It might be one day. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to be realist and say that when something's going pretty well, and I just ask, when like the politicians say, ask yourself, were you better off, 4 years ago or now? I say to my fellow hobbyists, ask yourself, are you better off now than you were 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago? And maybe you were better off then, but maybe you're better off now. But in any event, even if I feel like I was better off 5 years ago, it's like that show, The Office, when they say, I wish I knew when the good times were so I could make sure to enjoy them as they're happening. Well, these might be the good times. So, that's my message is and then the other part of it. So that's the stop and smell the roses part. The other part of it is caution to say things are good, but let's not make the mistake of getting overly indulgent and taking things too far and getting swept away and losing our sense of responsibility and going beyond what our budgets are and being irresponsible and not thinking long term. And so that's the other message is caution to say that we have to fight to preserve a good hobby experience. It's not just going to be handed to us. So we should be cautious. We should take stock of things. We should protect what we think is good. We should work on improving what we think isn't good. And know that we're in an upswing right now. I mean, generally speaking, the numbers are all pointing up. So let's be cautious. Let's be cautious and enjoy a good thing while we've got it.
Well said. I agree. I like how you were optimistic, but you were real. You kept it real. Like, hey, not everything is roses and daisies and great sounding music, right? Just tread lightly. And I've heard the term. I've heard people self-appoint themselves, Chris, like I'm a hobby watchdog. I've heard people tell me I'm a hobby watchdog. My answer always is like, number one, you don't self-appoint your hobby watchdog, and we all need to be stewards of that. We're all hobby. We should all be looking out for each other. It always bothers me a little bit when someone kind of knights themselves that, because I think we all are in our own right if we're active participants, right? We should all try to help each other. If we know something that can make a difference or help someone else out or save them maybe from going down a pratfall, I believe we should all do that. I don't think it's one person's job I think it's all of us together. When you hear that term hobby watchdog, like what are your general feelings when you hear that?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I'm reminded of something Josh Adams said the last show I did live with Jeremy, the Sports Cards Live, the Saturday night show. Josh Adams and I are like, sometimes we come on at the very end and we just chat a bit. And Josh said that hobbyists have a duty to educate each other, to help each other if they discover something or learn something, to share it with the community. And that really resonates with what I think you're saying right here with the watchdog angle, that we all have a duty to be watchdogs. This is a neighborhood watch, and we should all be looking out for each other's homes. We should all be looking out to protect each other and then expect the same in return, that people are going to look out for us too. And if we all kind of pull our weight, and if we all sort of step up as hobby watchdogs and we do it responsibly, and we, stay in our lane. Like, there are some things that I'm not an expert about. I don't know how to spot certain fakes. So somebody else is going to have to fill in the gap there and do the things that I can't do. But if we all sort of chip in where we can, kind of like a potluck, if we all bring a dish, we're all going to be fed. We're all going to be taken care of. So I like that framing quite a bit. I think that's actually one of the best ways I've ever heard the hobby watchdog concept laid out, is that we all have a responsibility to be watched up.
Yeah, and I always feel, and maybe it's not fair, I always feel when someone sort of like puts that tag on themselves or anoints themselves, I think it's almost more for their ego, like, hey, I'm this, and maybe you're not this. When I want to say, like, we're all this, like you are, but so is everyone else. Like, it's not, there's not a commission that said you are, and Chris is and John isn't, or John is and Chris isn't. And so that's where I'm coming from. And like you said, we all, I like the neighborhood watch analogy too, right? The hobby is all of our neighborhoods. We should all be looking out for anything that's not above board or not right, and that's or even just helpful. Like you said, let's have a block party and everyone bring a dish to pass, and let's have some fun too. So it doesn't always have to have a negative connotation as well, right? Information can be positive, like, hey, this card short printed, or this number's not in the set for whatever happened, whatever reason, things like that, right? Just useful information. Watchdog always has sort of a Crime Stopper feel to it. And listen, we both know that there's that aspect in the hobby. So I'm not like poo-pooing that or sweeping that under the rug, but it's not all that, right? That's a small percentage. I think you'll agree there's more positive stories than negative ones, but like the regular news, right? What gets more ratings is some of the negative stuff. So I think we kind of both thinking along the same lines. A little speaking of positive, let me put you a little bit. If I said describe your PC today, how would you answer that question?
Describe my PC today, I would say it's come a long way. It's come a long way because I've come a long way as a collector, and I've learned so much. It's really the last few years for me as collecting, like the last 2 years, have been so much about researching, learning about sets, learning about history, diving deep into checklists, building spreadsheets, learning about the significance of particular issues, and like finding ones that resonate with me, and then like deliberately seeking those out to add to my collection. And that's just it's come a long way. That's how I feel about my collection, and it's unrecognizable compared to what my collection looked like 10 years ago. It's unrecognizable compared to what it looked like 5 years ago, and probably 5 years from now it's going to be unrecognizable again. So it's evolving, it's changing, and that's what makes it fun. Like, the thing that's just been lighting my fire for the last few years is research and learning more and more. Like, maybe if I come across a new player I want to collect, and then I'll spend weeks making a spreadsheet of all of their rookie year cards. Like, for an ultra modern player anyway, it can take weeks. And I'll look at all of them, and I'll find the ones that I really like, and then I'll build my saved searches and wait for those to show up. And I've really come a long way as a collector. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, no doubt, and it's good to hear you say how, because that's how I'm sort of more down the middle. I'm more of a rookie card collector, Hall of Fame, for sports. But speaking of that, when you go to, I know you're a busy guy when you're at the National, and I know you go to more shows than the National, but I'll use the National as a focal point for this question. Do you go in, and I don't know how much time away from the booth or downtime, if you will, to kind of go around and maybe look at cases and pick up some stuff. Do you have are you a guy that has like a target list, or you kind of fly by the seat of your pants and say, you know what, something strikes me, like I like that? Or are you more of a regimented where, like, hey, I've got a list of 5 to 10 cards or 3 cards or whatever? What's your approach? And maybe you can take even the National, but you're at a card show and you're looking to acquire cards. What's your sort of modus operandi?
I absolutely have preset ideas in my mind of what I'm looking for, but it's a big list. So, there's like, it's almost like categories that I'm looking for. Like, Nikola Jokic is a player that I collect. I know because of my research that he only has 36 one-of-ones from his rookie year that are solo cards, and then he has 2 one-of-ones from his rookie year that are multiplayer cards, so he has 38 total. And I'm looking for any of those 38. I've got 5 of them, and I'm looking for any of the other ones I don't have. So that's a category. And if one of those show up, that's something that's definitely on my list that I might be interested in if we can work out a fair price. But I'm also very flexible, like I'm not going in and saying, well, I need these 3. Like, no, I like the whole category. If it's a Jokic rookie year 1-of-1, I'm interested. So I've got a pretty big list. Like, and I've got that approach for all my PC players where, like, if a card fits into a category that I'm really excited about, then, there's probably hundreds of cards that could be of interest to me anytime I go to a show. But so I start with the list, but it's a big list. And then within that list, we can get real flexible. And anything from that list, I might try to make a deal for.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I go to the net, I'll answer my own question. I'm going in there with like 5 to 7 cards. I know I'm probably not getting all 5 or 7, but if I can, a good percentage.
You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
We are back.
How much of a planner are you, John? Like, in general, do you plan a lot, or do you kind of let those?
There's a little OCD in there.
Yeah.
If I guess that's how I'd answer that question. I rather plan. I'm not down to like the minute, but I like to have some sort of game plan. Maybe that's the old coach in me, where you sort of you devise a game plan. Now, sometimes, as you know, in sports, right, you might have a game plan going in, and you've got to pivot and come up with a plan B. But I like to have some sort of thought process in place of what I'm doing this day or what I'm looking for this day, right? But you also got to be, like you said, the word flexible, right? To like be able to, like, hey, something doesn't happen in the way you thought it was gonna, like, I got to pivot and flow with it. So like you said, I'll have a list, but have I bought something? That's sure. I think we all probably can say that something just catches our eye and we're like, you know what, that wasn't even on my radar, but I like it. And the price was right. And now in my backpack. So, I think we've all done that, and you shouldn't have to apologize for that. Right. But I think you have to have sort of, I think it's all, if you don't go in with one and you're just too wide open, then it's like being loose on a racetrack.
Nope, you don't want to do that. You need a playbook. Right? Like going with the coaching metaphor, you know, I might have 100 plays in my playbook that I might be interested in running, but I'm going to stick to my playbook. I'm not going to start making up plays in the middle of the game.
Yep. No, you're right. So I got to ask you, what's your travel schedule look like in a 52-week year? I know you're a busy guy, like, besides traveling, but has it increased? We talk about it like the last 5 years. Has your travel schedule increased, or has it always been pretty steady and busy?
It's increased, and part of that is because the pandemic is over. So it's just there's more moving about and going out and doing things. But like this year, we're not even halfway through March, and we've been to Los Angeles. We've been all over Los Angeles, the different neighborhoods in Los Angeles, visiting card shops. We've been down to San Diego. We went to the Front Row Card Show down there. We've been up to the Bay Area. We've been to card shows and shops up there. We've been over to Arizona. We've done stuff over in Arizona too. We've done stuff locally. I'm going to be going to the Chicago Spectacular this weekend. It's been a very, very busy year so far. And then, obviously the National is coming up, and it's tough. Like this summer, it could be really stressful trying to do all the traveling. If you're going to Fanatics Fest, if you're going to the National, if you're going out to the West Coast Card Show that comes out a month after that. And by the way, we were at the West Coast Card Show in Ontario, California also. So, there's a lot. There's and if you're not careful, you can end up traveling too much or wear yourself out. Because even coming into this year, we were out east. We went to the EC3 show in Connecticut, and we were doing stuff out there. That was like in November and December, going to shops in Connecticut and New York, doing that whole thing. And sometimes your body will just tell you need to take a break too. Like after this last trip, we were out west for 2 months, and then as soon as I got home, I caught a cold. Now, my body just shut down for a week or two. That can happen too. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of traveling, man. It's been a lot of traveling, and there's going to be more. We got Arizona coming back up again in April. We got the Spectacular this weekend. We got the National this summer, and that's just the next few months.
When you have a weekend, I don't know how many there are, but when you get that weekend where like, hey, I can be home, maybe work, maybe doing some work. Like, do you enjoy those too? Is it like because you maybe don't get as many of those as you would particularly like all the time? Like, how do you approach like that, a quiet weekend?
Yeah,
or is it weird because you're busy so much? Or like you don't know what to?
It's just funny because I've got one of those lifestyles where my work and my recreation are intertwined. If I ever got a free afternoon, like, I'm going to want to go to a card shop, or I'm going to want to do some research on cards, or I'm going to go look at auctions that are ending soon, or, I'm going to make a podcast, or, I've been very fortunate that even working in the space that it hasn't extinguished my excitement for doing it as a hobby at the same time. In fact, it almost reinforces it. But the one thing that I do like to do, John, like, if I'm out of commission because I'm sick for a few days or whatever, like I'll just throw on movies, man. Like I just watched this new movie called The Trap House with Dave Bautista and the other guy, I can't remember his name right now. And now I'm like down this Dave Bautista rabbit hole. I think he's great. I always love the tough guy movies, like I was big on Jason Statham movies, Vin Diesel, Bruce Willis. Like I love that genre. And now I got these Dave Bautista, this little his filmography that I'm going to start working through because I really like his stuff. So that's what I do. If I'm blowing off some steam, I'll throw on a movie like that.
Yeah, and it's tough, like knowing what you do, and I know you just got over an illness. Good to see you're feeling better. That's got to be even tough because, like, as you know, right, while we're sick, like stuff is still happening.
It don't stop.
It
doesn't stop.
And it's like work piling on the desk, and so. Yeah. Obviously, you can't control being sick, but you almost feel guilty. Like I need to get to that, but I can't. I'm not feeling it. That was when I get sick. And listen, I'm older than you, so I probably get sick maybe a little bit easier or more often. I'm always like, man, I can't be sick right now to do this or do that, and it's tough. But unfortunately, you don't get to control that. And as you well know, health has got. If health has got to come first, or the work won't even matter anymore. You won't be in any condition to do it.
You got to listen to your body too. If your body's telling you it needs a break, it gets the final say on that.
So you mentioned, you sort of touched around the edges of we've heard the term hobby burnout. I've done a hobby quick hits on it. It's something I've talked about even just in general conversation. I have moments. I wouldn't say I've ever had so much hobby burnout because I don't really get to that point, Chris, like you said, because I love the hobby enough where like I'd really have to like go way over the top to ever get to it. But there are weekends where I say, and we even talked a little bit about this before record. There are weekends where I say, you know what? I'm not doing content, I'm not looking at or listening to. I'm not touching cards for 2 days, 3 days, and then I'll get back on the horse. Do you have moments like that, or are you just too busy where you really can't even afford to?
Oh no, I'll absolutely. If I'm like I'm tired of looking at this stuff, dealing with this stuff right now, I'll take a break. But yeah, I mean, if it got to a point where I was genuinely burned out, I would need to reconsider things, and I know that. I know that about myself. Like, if it ever stops being fun, might be time to take a second look and reevaluate. So I always keep that in the back of my mind, And life ain't all about having fun. It's about putting your head down and working and contributing and having meaning and so forth. And I understand that too. Like, I'm not sitting here expecting that every day is going to be sunshine and puppies, but if overall the experience is starting to drain me and it's having a negative impact on my life, I'll start looking elsewhere. But unfortunately, I've never had that. I've really never had anything even close to that. I've had, and that's different. Like in one of my previous professions, when I worked in the music industry, I loved making music as a hobby. And then when I went full time and professional in it, I liked it for a while, but I started to lose the passion because so much of the work I was doing was at the direction of other people. Like, you need to make me compose some stuff for me that sounds like this, or I don't really like how you mixed this. I want the vocals to be louder and the kick drum to be lower. And after a while, it's just like, well, I'm just kind of a machine. I'm just doing other people's bidding. I really am not having a creative outlet. And I think I carried some of those lessons over into working into this space, to where I sort of built a moat around myself that lets me be creative, lets me sort of work on my own terms to some extent. But also, at the end of the day, when you're providing a service, every customer is your boss. If somebody has a complaint or an issue or a question, I have to step up, or somebody on my team is going to step up, and we're going to address it. That's our job. That's part of running a decent business. So it all kind of plays together and works itself together there. But burnout's a real thing. And then there's something else. There's another side of the coin. So you can get burnt out. But my buddy Curtis brought this up to me the other day when we were talking. There's the opposite of burnout, which is like addiction, or you're overindulging in the hobby and you're spending too much, and it's taken away from your time. It's taken away from spending time with your family and your loved ones, or it's taken away from your professional responsibilities or your other duties in life. And then that can be a problem too, where it's the opposite of burnout. You're doing too much. You're burning the candle on both ends. And that can be something that might need to get regulated also. So we have to moderate ourselves on all the extremes. And I could be maybe more susceptible to overindulging, to just making the hobby too much of my life and not having a balance. So having a balance is really important too, John.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned like the addiction part, because, and hopefully that, this isn't someone out there when, where it's unhealthy, right? There's good things, right? Listen, you could be doing something really terrible or illegal and that sort of thing, right? But like anything, right? Anything can be addicting depending on how much you do it, or where it starts affecting not just yourself, but other people or relationships, right? And sometimes when you're in that, you may not even realize it takes someone else to say, hey, you missed this, or where were you for the birthday party? Right? Or whatever. I'm just bringing up stuff off the top of my head, but stuff like that is where it can go. Like you said, there's two sides to that coin as well. So it's a good point that you brought up as well. And I think we've all had moments. I think we've all had days where like I did a lot of stuff hobby-wise today, but it's when those days start to run together where maybe that becomes more of an issue than one day, if you will. But like I said, I've had weekends where I'm like 2 or 3 days, like I'm gonna take a break. And when I've done that, Chris, it's the old cliche saying, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Taking those couple days off, I'm like excited to get back, right? I'm itching or chomping at the bit, as they say. So
that's how I do it with my collection, John, is that I make sure to not just sit and stare at it all day, but I make it a reward. Like, I'm not going to force myself to go enjoy my cards, only when I'm like, oh, you know what would be a nice break right now if I could thumb through the collection minutes, and then I'll go do it, and I won't overdo it. I'll put them back away, and then we'll come back in a week or however long it takes.
Yep. And why not, am I right? You, like I say in one of my mantras, right? You built your collection, be proud of it, right? You should have those moments where you go through and say, yeah. And besides even the cards themselves, there's something to acquire here, but even the stories behind the acquisitions. I remember how I got this card. I remember what show it was. I remember who it was from. I remember the negotiations and this funny moment or whatever. Every card has a different story to tell. So it's even looking at the card and then thinking about the backstories behind the cards. I think that's important as well. And sometimes we forget about that. I always say, like, it's the acquisition is great, and that's obviously the end game, but don't forget about the journey along the way to get that, whatever that acquisition may be, whether it's an individual card, a whole set, that sort of, it's important to I think we appreciate it more when we think along those terms rather than, with some people like, oh, look at this $10,000 card, which is great and nothing wrong with that, to each their own. But it's more than just to me anyway. And I know to you, it's more than just a dollar sign of value.
It's got to be. That's how I find collecting to be sustainable.
Always awesome having Chris on, like I said in the intro. One of the things I love about having Chris on is he's not afraid to turn the tables during the conversation and ask, hey, John, what do you think of this? Or are you like this? Or what do you think? And that's always refreshing. I always appreciate that, right? You almost feel like you don't have to carry the conversation. Not that I have to a lot of times. I probably do sometimes when I shouldn't, but he always will make you think or ask you, hey, what's your view on that, or your approach, or are you like this? And that's always fun, especially when you don't necessarily know that's coming. And always like that about him. He's great on his own shows, and he's a great conversationalist. But more importantly, he's a great guy. And and the hobby's better with him in it. So we're not done with Chris yet. We're going to have part 2 next week as well to finish up our great and interesting conversation.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
Hello, collectors. This is Ed Green from Sacred Home Sports Cards. Remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.